Hello.
Good evening.
Hello. Again and again, there's a lot of familiar faces, so I don't need to tell you a great deal about the Jewish Historical Society, but for those who haven't been here before, the JHS was set up in the 80s. It's currently chaired by Judy Green, who's here tonight with Michael. The JHS has goals and objectives, including the establishment of a centre for preserving written materials and historical materials generally relating to the history of Jewish people in Hong Kong and China, the support and publication of relevant scholarly research. Can you take me down a bit, Glenn? I'm ringing. Thanks. And we have a Judaica library, which, if you didn't know, is just around the corner and run by Brenda Yee, who's sitting at the table tonight, taking your valuable contributions. Thanks very much. The JHS has published several monographs on the subject of the Jewish community in Hong Kong and the Jews in Kaifeng. And recently a book on the shul and its restoration, which is available outside. And if you haven't got a copy of the book on the shul, you should have one. It's a jolly good tome. And I believe that there may be one or two of these left which relate to the club, which was formerly known as the Jewish Recreation Club, now the Jewish Community Centre, where you're sitting tonight. We're an informal organisation. You participate if you want, you don't if you don't, and we've done some research into Jewish cemeteries in Southeast Asia, which is continuing, and we have a very active walking programme led by S.J. Chan, who is the founder of our society, and incidentally is not Jewish. So that's the JHS. Thank you for coming to one of our events tonight. This is the 6th in a series of Fireside chats where we have members of the community with slightly more interesting stories than the newer arrivals, such as me, to tell. You've heard Jack, who's been here, Vivian Picciotto, who's been here, and who are you pointing at?
Michael.
You're pointing at Michael, yes. Oh, Michael Green, who packed out the...
He had a big room.
He had a big room, yes. But he's a big man, so... and he's... and so we're still continuing the series. Oh, and yes, of course, the Bears who were here last time. So tonight we have Ruth Sulke. Ruth's got a very interesting story, although I must say, in trying to get it all into some kind of chronological order, she kept telling me that she has a very uninteresting story, and none of it was for you. So tonight should be quite interesting. We'll try and keep it roughly chronological, and so we might as well start at the very beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, Ruth Sulke.
First of all, that I was born, and I was born in London, and was 12 years old, you can work that one out, at the beginning of the war, and he wants me to start at that point. We were all evacuated from London, and this was quite a trauma, not so much for me but my parents. We all queued up with our little cardboard gas mask boxes and a haversack which contained 2 pair of knickers, 2 pair of socks, 2 vests and a t-shirt, and then we were going by bus to a train, and we didn't know where we were going. Now, I was 12 years old at that time, and I thought this was a bit of an adventure, and I now, in retrospect, realise how fantastic it was for my parents, who were the other side of the gate, and it was on a Shabbos morning, and I think this must have been the first time my father didn't go to shul on Shabbos, and they were waving gaily to me and everything, and I was waving back, and it wasn't till we were really on the train that we realised that what was going on.
It must have been traumatic for your parents.
That's what I said, for them, yeah, not for me. I was a kid, I thought, oh boy, this is good fun, we're going somewhere.
You said there were you...
Oh, my sister, sorry. Yeah.
You've got an elder sister.
I have an older sister.
And is that all the siblings you have?
This is just Joan and me, yeah.
Right, but your parents came from bigger families.
Huge. My father was one of 9 brothers, almost a football team, and a few sisters. My sister, yeah, Tim's looking. And my mother had about 5 brothers and 2 or 3 sisters, so we became a big family, but there were just the 2 of us.
And so then you were evacuated to somewhere in southeast England?
No, into Downham Market, which was in Norfolk, and then we moved down to Bishop's Stortford, and I was there for the duration of the war.
Did you go to school there?
Absolutely. What happened was all we evacuees used to share the local high school with them, and we went in the afternoons and they went in the mornings. And but when it came to my A-levels, they weren't doing the course that I wanted, so I went back to London.
The war was still on?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Well, we used to sneak out from Bishop's Stortford anyway to go up for the weekend, and was there for some of the biggest bombing raids. It was quite fun, actually.
So you were a teenager?
Yeah.
And you'd sneak out from where you were supposed to be safe and go back into London?
Yeah, why not? It was good fun. Yeah, it was a good weekend.
What about bombs and things?
Oh yeah, well I was there for some of the worst raids. It was quite something, and my parents actually wanted me to go into a shelter once. We did once, and I said never again. I'll take my chance, and that was it.
It must have been pretty scary.
I think that the thing that we all thought during the war was, if it's got your number on it, you're going to get it, and therefore, as kids, when we came up for the weekend with a tiny little battery going, where it was all blacked out. What the hell? If it's got your number on it, you're going to get it.
What could you always tell if your number was on?
No, so far I'm here, so my number didn't come up. Same as my number doesn't come up if I go into a lottery or sort of, the races, So I was lucky. But anyways, no, the biggest fun of that was when I went back to London to do my A-levels. We were at school, completely in London, and I can always remember once there was an air raid warning. And when there was a warning, they used to say, well, go away from class and that. And we looked outside into the sky, and there was an aeroplane belching flames. And we thought, fantastic, we've got it. And suddenly, the engine cut out, and it glided down. And that was the first Doodlebug, the flying bombs.
Wow.
And we got it down to a fine art. If one of these things cut out coming towards you, then you beat it away from glass. But if it cut out when it was above you, you used to think, oh, well, someone else is going to get it because he used to come down slowly.
We'll come back to bombs, I know. You finished school, finished your A-levels.
Yeah.
So by now you're in your teens.
Yeah.
And a nice Jewish girl. What's a job for a nice Jewish girl at the end of the war?
Well, actually, I did have a very interesting job. I worked for an organisation called the Central British Fund, which was the financial side of the American Joint Distribution Committee. And at that point, we were raising funds to help the AJDC get refugees out of the concentration camps.
What was the AJDC?
American Joint Distribution Committee.
All right. So that's I see. So you were raising funds in England
Yep.
to help get people who've been in the camps out.
Yes.
And where did you go to do that, and how did you do that?
I used to go around the country talking to various organizations to try and raise money and alerting people as to what was going on. And I did quite well.
So that's a splendid job, and you got to meet some interesting people in 46, 47.
Absolutely, including my husband.
I suppose we have to talk about that.
He's quite a part of my life, yeah.
How, it's a good story, tell the story. How did you meet Walter?
Well, the story is that I had a very good friend, a Czechoslovakian girl, and this was in 1947, and we were going to Switzerland on holiday, and this was after the war, boy, it was really big, going away to Switzerland. I was feeling very pleased about this. And 1 week before we were due to go, she fell sick. So I went to visit her, and who was visiting her as well? But Walter, who went to school with Ina, who was Czechoslovakian, and because Walter came over from Germany, in 1937, and they went to the same school.
This is was a particular kind of school, special school.
Special
wasn't it?
school. It was rather special. They had all sorts of rather special people there, and
Mainly
German, Czechoslovakian, Austrian. I mean, people who parents were sending them out of Germany and the countries where Nazism was virulent.
So, these were mainly Jewish people or not, or
the people who, yes, they were mainly Jewish, but they also, the school was in Kent, and they also took local people, so it was a very nice mixture of people. There, I mean, people like Gerd Hoffnung, I mean, the cartoonist, brilliant. Someone's nodding their head. Oh, he was amazing. And the best man at my wedding, actually, was Adler, the psychiatrist's son. And I can remember my father nearly having a fit when he arrived to be the best man at my wedding in a duffel coat. And
anyway, Walter and Ina were at this school together. Ina's sick. You're supposed to be going on holiday with her. Walter's just come to visit Ina, and how to get from there to getting married? I don't understand.
Well, what happened was, it was very, very simple actually. We got into a huge fight.
Surely not.
Yeah, why not? I mean, people who know me know that we always used to fight with me. Nice fighting. And we were arguing actually about the work of the Central British Fund and the American Joint Distribution Committee, and I thought he was a complete pain. And it was time to go, and it started to rain, and it started to rain quite heavily, and I had an umbrella and he didn't. So that's how we really met. So he shared my umbrella to the tube station. We got on the train, and I got off one station before him. And just as the doors were closing, he said, "I'll meet you tomorrow at 3 o'clock at Oxford Circus." I said, "No, you don't." And I went home, and my mother said, "Did you have a nice time, darling?" I said, "Oh, yes, poor Ina, etc., etc." But, oh, God, I met somebody who was such a pain. So evidently the next morning, I was getting on my mother's nerves, and she said, "Oh, for goodness sake, keep that appointment." So I did, and that's how it started.
That's how it started, in Oxford Circus in 1947.
No, we went for a walk in Regent's Park, actually. We didn't say in Oxford Circus.
That's how it started out. Walter, by then, was he living in England all the time?
Yes, Walter, at the beginning of the war, even though you were only 15 and 16, you were interned. And then the British government decided that this was a nonsense, and so they let these youngsters out of internment camps.
So he was at Bunce Court, you've told us, with Ina.
Yeah.
But by then, the end of the war, 47, 48?
Oh, no. In 47, he was working. He had a very ordinary job, but, he was working.
Mm-hmm.
And Ina and I went off on holiday. She got better. And it was a rather special time for Walter, because his father, who had escaped from Germany during the war, 1940, he had escaped from, he wasn't in a concentration camp, he was in prison. And he escaped and went via Germany, Russia, Siberia, Japan, to Shanghai. And Walter hadn't seen him since 1937.
Hadn't seen his dad?
No.
Since 1937.
So that 10 years later he was going to meet him in Marseille, because his father was coming especially to see his son.
From Shanghai after the war?
Yes.
So Walter goes to Marseille, Dad comes from England, Dad comes from Shanghai.
Correct.
And what happens then?
Well, unfortunately his father had a heart attack and was rushed to Lausanne and died.
Oh no.
Sad.
This broke my heart, Walter's heart. And so that's how Walter got to Shanghai. He went to Shanghai to settle his father's business, and being young, and he wasn't going to take anything. He made sure that his father's things were in order, and that's how we got involved with Zong Fu Company, because the Chinese, being wonderful people as they are, firstborn son had to have something, and they gave Walter a share of Company.
Which was the business that his dad had
Right.
with the partners in Shanghai.
Correct.
Before and during the war.
Correct.
So Walter went out to Shanghai this would have been 47.
Correct.
He would have been 23, 24?
He was born in 23.
So 24.
Yeah.
And he set, bang, Shanghai in 47.
Oh, what a fantastic place. He had an absolute ball there.
In 47. So,
Yeah.
But how did he maintain contact with you, and how did you maintain contact with Walter when he went off and did this?
Well, that's a bit of a giggle, actually, because we corresponded, and my mother thought, oh, gee, he was a nice guy, because when we first met, he used to sort of send me poems every day. There was a poem in the thing. Oh, my mother thought this was great, much nicer than the sort of yobs I was hanging out with at that time. And then she was also very impressed, because he used to phone me once a month. Besides writing, she used to think, gee, that's fantastic. And it was only after we got married that I realized the inflation was so great in Shanghai at that time that the Shanghai telephone company used to almost giving him back money, because he used to pay one sort of month later plus 10 days, and the inflation had gone so crazy it didn't cost him a cent. But my mother didn't know that.
but Shanghai fell in 48.
No, it fell in early 1949.
Early 49. Shanghai
Yeah,
fell.
That's right, yeah.
What, Walter gets on a boat.
He got on the last boat leaving Shanghai called the President Cleveland. Tim's parents were still there, because that's how I got involved with Mr. Hoffman. I knew him before he was born. No, Walter was with Howard and Elise in Shanghai, and that's how our two families have been completely entwined since.
Sweet. So Walter gets on the President Cleveland, the last
Yeah.
boat out of Shanghai.
Yeah.
That brings him to where?
That brings him to Hong Kong.
No. And then from Hong
Then
Kong.
from Hong Kong he went to England, and
When he gets to England, what happened?
he asked me to marry him again, because he asked me in
What do you mean
48.
again?
Well, he asked me in 48. I mean, actually, on our first date in 47, when I thought he was such a pain, he said to me, "You don't know when, but sometime I'm going to marry you." And I just sort of burst out. I thought this was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. And then in 48, he asked me to marry him again, and I was terribly young, and. But I decided in 49, well, I don't think he'll ask me again, so we got married. And I bet you haven't had so many laughs with the other people. Anyway, no, then it was good. And my parents insisted I had a white wedding, so in 10 days we had a white wedding.
Wow.
And I left for Hong Kong the day after.
Well, you left for Shanghai.
Yeah,
didn't you?
absolutely, yeah, but we stopped up, we thought we were going to stop at Hong Kong, then go to Shanghai.
And so, how did you take the boat? How did you?
No way! We flew Philippine Airlines, a DC-4. Wasn't that old.
And then the DC-4 plops you down in Hong Kong.
Plopped us, that's right, yeah. Oh God, I'll never forget that. In those days, you had, didn't have anyway. We stayed at the Peninsula Hotel, room 213, which is a very significant place, because that 213 is going to figure in my 40th wedding anniversary afterwards,
Yeah.
but never mind. But when we got into room 213, and suddenly I saw a huge animal flying at me. It was a cockroach. A nice Jewish girl from Stanford Hill who'd ever seen a cockroach before. I didn't, and I screamed. Walter came running out, thought his wife was being murdered or something, but it was just a cockroach.
But then, for one reason or another, Shanghai wasn't going to happen, was it?
No, but I mean, the thing that's interesting after the cockroach was that I had to meet the Chinese partner's family, and we went out for lunch because they wanted to see what Walter had married. And I'll never forgive, CF, he was CF Chow, he was a wonderful person, but an absolute stinker, because he gave him, all the family was around this table, my chopsticks were going sort of like this, and I was so nervous, I was dying. And then CF thought he was being very clever, gave me the eye of a fish. Now, it's difficult to pick the eye of a fish up in chopsticks, especially when they're going like this. And when I finally did it, the eye was in my cheek, and no way was I going to chew on this. So I ate the whole meal with it in my cheek, until I could take a huge glug of something, and I swallowed it whole. When I confronted CF about this, he said, "Yeah, I know I was going to give you a hard time."
Now, you lived in Nathan Road, or sorry, you lived, where did you live?
I lived in Southchuk Yuan Road.
Southchuk Yuan Road. Nathan Road, how was it compared to how it
Nathan
is
Road
now?
was fantastic. It was like an avenue with trees and rickshaws going up and down. Boy, this really gives my age away, doesn't it? Never mind.
And you lived in Southchuk Yuan Road, which was near Prince Edward Road and College Road.
Correct.
And that's not far from where the airport used to be, Kaitang.
That's a story unto itself, because who else? Hey, Vivian, you should remember this, do you? The runway used to go across Prince Edward Road, and when the planes landed, the road used to be closed. You're nodding your head. Your parents telling you. And it was quite fun, actually.
So you'd go up there and watch the planes come in?
No, it was boring. No, but if you were driving along there, it was quite exciting to see a great big aeroplane coming down in front of you.
And then they'd open gates, or a policeman?
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
But there's one more thing with that as well, because if there was a downdraft or something coming down Lime Rock,
Yeah.
you were really in trouble, because with a crosswind, the plane couldn't take off.
So people would be stuck for days.
Yeah.
It's rather fun. And then you'd been working. I have to push on a little bit, but you'd
They're
been
not serving breakfast, so we've got to do it fast.
you'd been working in an advertising magazine called Shopping News.
Yeah.
I want to push on from that if I can, because you've got so much to tell everyone.
You want to know about Shopping News?
Not
or not?
really. What I think people would be interested in is Walter Sulke in the early 50s.
Well, no, the Shopping News was very important. but then it was only after I
What are we
finished
going to
with
leave out
Shopping.
if we keep Shopping News?
Oh, right.
No, Shopping News was fun. You were in Prince's building,
Yeah,
right?
that was great. Yeah, that was very exciting.
The
Going
old
over on the old,
Prince's building.
yeah, with huge ceilings and fans going around and getting proofs with all sort of printer's ink on you. Okay.
And the printing press was
downstairs in the basement.
in the basement in Prince's building.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
That sounds like fun. But you got fed up with that.
Yeah. After a couple of years, I decided that I only wanted to work sort of part-time, because I was doing other things.
And you worked part-time with Walter Sulke?
Yeah, Walter.
Now, who was Walter, for people who don't know?
Walter was the consul. No, he wasn't the consul general. Victor was the consul general. He was the acting consul general at that time. And we were processing people, again, the American Joint Distribution Committee, getting refugees out of Shanghai, Tianjin, Harbin, and trying to settle them all over the world. And I helped him on that, and it was very interesting.
That's a really nice thing to do. 52, so now, roughly 52. How was Zong Fu doing?
Gee.
Zong
We
Fu in
decided
Hong Kong, how was it doing?
Well, Zung Fu in Shanghai closed because we couldn't, we were having to send money. It was no good. In 52, we decided that it would be a good thing to eat on a permanent basis, and we were absolutely flat broke. We didn't know what to do. So Walter decided that we had to do something, and he liked cars, and he looked around and found that there were no Mercedes around, so he said, well, I'm going to try for the Mercedes agency.
It's a bit ambitious.
Why not? He always was ambitious.
And so?
And so, from England, we went to England to see my parents, and we drove in a broken down old Ford Zephyr to Stuttgart, and he conned his way into seeing the hierarchy there and said, I'd like your agency.
For Hong Kong?
Yeah. So they were so flabbergasted that they said, oh, all right. Well, all we had money for was to bring one car in, and we just took a sort of a manual, and we appointed the Hong Kong garage to do our servicing.
The Hong Kong garage. Was there one?
The Hong Kong. It was called the Hong Kong garage at the bottom of Stubbs Road. And then when we sold that car, we could afford to buy another one, and so it went on for a little while like that until the bank suddenly decided that we'd maybe lend us a bit of money, so we sort of brought a few more in, and then Walter had a brilliant idea. He could see the possibilities of bringing a diesel car in.
Now hang on, in Europe in the early 50s, all the taxis in Germany were diesel Mercedes.
I have no idea at all.
You have no idea. Walter knew this or something
Well,
like this?
I don't know, but all I know is that Walter decided that it would save the taxi companies here a lot of money, and the diesel cars were much stronger anyway than petrol cars. And that's when we brought the first diesel car in.
How does anybody introduce a place that's never had a diesel car before to take up a diesel?
Well, chutzpah, by going to somebody and saying, I think I can save you a fortune, and I think you should buy this diesel taxi. And the person who he got hold of was a really charming man called Mr. W.C. Choi of Star Taxi. Remember the green taxi? And Walter said, well, I really think this is going to work, and we'll give you the car for 6 months. So no one's going to turn that offer down. So WC took it, and within 6 weeks he ordered the first of his fleet, and that's how we launched the diesel taxis in Hong Kong.
And until very recently, all the taxis in Hong Kong have been diesel, and until about the 80s, 70s, late 70s, they were all Mercedes, weren't they? You see these pictures?
I know. They were the Japanese started to bring in, I think, middle 70s.
Middle 70s. So from the mid 50s right through to the 70s.
Yeah.
Right, good years. Now, cars. You're a bit of a sucker for cars too, aren't you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you are too. I can.
Oh,
shucks.
But Walter was he played with cars as well as ran a car business.
Yes.
You were telling us how he started in Macau.
Well, yeah, Walter and Bob Harper and Teddy Yip from Teddy Yip from Macau got together and founded the Macau Grand Prix in 1954. And Walter drove in the first Macau Grand Prix, and I was pregnant with my son and was having a lousy pregnancy, so they wouldn't let me go to Macau at that time. And then Walter was driving, and he was winning the first Macau Grand Prix, and the radio commentary was fantastic, and suddenly they said, Sulke's missing. I thought, oh my God, my child's going to be born with no father and everything. But then they said, oh no, he's appeared, he just crashed into some tires or something, and that was it.
And you kept lap charts?
Oh yes, afterwards, Joanna Moore and me, we kept the lap charts we were in the timing pits and Walter was in the mechanical pits. And Joanna and I kept such fantastic lap charts that the officialdom used to come and they used to check our lap charts to see what we had, because we were efficient, and there were no computers at that time, and we were much more efficient than the people in the official timing thing.
So Neil was born when?
55.
55, and closely followed by?
Francesca. 58.
58. So 55, 58, you part-time engagements, but full-time mum.
Yeah.
And 55, 58, 60s, I suppose, really. As you bring up the kids, where'd the kids go to school?
Oh, Glenn. Oh, no, the kids went.
When they were little, they went to a
primary school. Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
They went to a kindergarten.
Yeah, and then primary school was Glen Ely.
When did they start cheder?
Oh boy. When they were.
9, 10?
Yeah, I was just going to say about 8 or 9 years.
So this would have been just early 60s?
Well, the early 60s, were very important to me.
Yeah.
Because the lady sitting there was very important to me, because that's when I started ikebana, which started everything. From ikebana, everything else fell into place.
Well, come back to the ikebana and stuff. Let's talk about the kids and cheder for a minute, because I think I want to get onto these pictures we've got. It's not everybody that has their picture on the wall in the JCC. Because the kids used to go to cheder, and
Got sunglasses on, you can't really see it.
what did you do when the kids were in cheder and on a Sunday?
Sophie and Monia.
Sophie and Monia, yeah. Charlotte, Joan, and me. That's the tennis court there,
Yeah.
and the synagogue. Yeah, okay, well, we'll come to that.
So let's talk about that. So what there was before this was the shul was the shul,
Yeah.
and behind the shul and down a bit this way, and so down a bit this way was what? There was the club.
Well, can I describe them?
Please. There's a lot of people who don't know what it was.
No,
like.
well, the JRC was magic. I mean, it's Rob. You came off Robinson Road, you came down a driveway. On the right-hand side there were trees, and you used to park there. On the left-hand side was this part here, where we were sitting here. And on the left-hand side is a lawn, and then the tennis court, and then the synagogue, which is there the same as it was.
So next to this sitting out area, this lawn,
Yeah.
was a low grey building, right? About 2 stories.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I don't remember. Was it? Well, the usual thing. Anyway,
Cream.
Cream, yes. And you went in. You went in, and you came in, and there was the bar with some nice, comfortable chairs, and then.
There was glass on it. The glass. Okay.
Yeah. Is that it?
Something.
Right.
Hey, Mama, that's.
And we'll come back to that. We've got time for that.
No, so you came in, there was the bar, and then there was a sort of seating area, and then, that's all right.
And then,
And there were the stairs that went upstairs to the changing area, and then as you came in, you went through this seating area to a huge, huge room where there was a badminton court, and this is where. And Rob, I tell you the things you got to do here.
and there was a badminton court.
No,
and who
no.
played badminton?
Well, Achan was our number 2 boy, and he was a fantastic badminton player. He taught Rob, he taught Neil, he taught all the youngsters of that age, and it was magic. The kids really, really enjoyed it. At that time as well, I made use of this big room because I introduced it to the Sugetsu Teachers Association, which was founded in 1969, and Ikebana International, which was founded in 59. We used to have our meetings there, remember, Lucia? It used to be good fun. Then you went through this room, and there was a big stage at the end of this room, and you went through, and there was a room beyond that where we used to play cards, and we used to, I mean, everything. It was marvelous.
Sorry.
Fun. No, fun. And that is where. So that was
And
quite.
what about people, interesting people?
Oh, there are lots of interesting people at that time.
Here we've got some in this picture, which I've just nicked this off the wall down the corridor, so you'll be able to see it later. But from left to right, who have we got?
Well, we've got Monia Sophie Bard. Sadly, Sophie died about 3 weeks ago.
Monia
Dr.
also.
Solomon Bard.
Dr. Solomon Bard also.
Well,
He
Monia.
was an archaeologist.
Well, Monia was an archaeologist. He was a medical doctor. That was the thing. But he didn't like medicine very much. He did archaeology. He was besotted by music. He was the conductor of the Hong Kong Philharmonic and also the Chinese orchestra.
Right.
And
So that's the Bards.
that's the Bards. That's Joan Zarinsky,
Joan Zarinsky
me, and Charlotte Godkin in the back.
with the baby.
Yeah.
Right. And was this was a regular Sunday afternoon on the lawn?
No. Whatever. I mean, we just used to meet up there from time to time. I mean, you know. It was
And
fun.
so you mentioned Ikebana and Lucille Evans, who's sitting over here. That became something of a passion.
Complete passion, still is. In fact, when I'm back here, I still go for lessons every Friday to Lucille's because you never stop learning.
And
And it's great.
that got you need pots to put plants, flowers in.
Oh
don't
yeah,
you?
that's right. Yeah.
So what happened with you and pots?
Well, actually, the 60s was the beginning of an absolute sort of time where I just was soaking up everything. I started to study ceramics, and I was earthenware ceramics, which didn't really satisfy me, but I was making interesting pots. And then I went back to the extramural courses at the university. I was studying classical Chinese painting, modern Chinese painting, woodblock printing, life drawing. I mean, you name it, I was doing it. I was just sort of soaking things up. But the thing that was really the most interesting thing that set me on the road, which is really my main profession, which is the ceramics. The Sugetsu Teachers Association had a seminar in stoneware ceramics conducted by a Mr. Wesley Potter, who sounds
You couldn't
funny,
make
doesn't
it up, could you?
Yeah, no, I couldn't make that up. That's what I'm saying. It was funny. He was a great guy, and he sort of saw that I had a natural talent for it, and he was marvelous. He helped me for my first one-person show, which was at Gammon House in 1979.
Gammon House not there anymore, is it?
No way, I don't know,
Hang
somewhere.
on, is it Gammon House?
Oh,
Is
Bank of
Jardine
America
House?
Tower.
Oh, it's
Bank of America
Tower.
Tower. That's right, yeah.
That's it.
And that's where I had my first
Right.
one-person show.
And your shows got bigger and better, didn't they? And you ended up the best. What was the best one that you ever had? Do you think?
Well, the best one actually was the last one in Pacific Club in Worldwide House, which is this was the
This one.
This, if
This
anyone
is-
wants to look at that.
This is one of your torso
Yeah,
sculptures,
that's in Australia.
and this is ceramic. You made
Stoneware
stoneware
ceramic,
ceramic.
yes.
So you moulded it, fired it. Sorry, moulded it.
I
Glazed
build.
it.
All the ceramics I've done has been hand built. I've never thrown anything. It's all. Because no, the main thing that I did in the study was the main thing is that I studied with Lydia Silvestri, the Italian sculptress. Do you remember Lydia? She was the one who put up this mural at the Hong Kong Hilton, and we had lessons with Lydia, and I found that sculpting was really the thing that I loved doing.
And you became quite celebrated as a
Yeah.
sculptor. You've
Yeah.
got your work in a number of places you're very proud of.
Yeah.
You were telling me.
Well, the Hong Kong Museum of Art have got 7 of my pieces. The Kowloon Museum have got 2. I've got pieces in private collections all over. I'm very honoured to.
there's,
Rob's got a man, but George and Mary, you have got it. You've got 2 pieces. You see?
has anybody got these ones with the wooden finish? Because I rather like them.
No, well, what I used to do was
Woodland
I used to
ones.
have. Because I was very lucky. I didn't have to work to eat, so I could experiment. That was the one on the cover was my metal thing. This was my wood section, and they were very interesting. It's trying to mould or build stoneware ceramics to look like wood, metal. Oh, there's some nice coral stuff in there as well.
Some beautiful
yeah.
stuff. I think we may have missed something about.
Oh yeah, the show, the one I had a one-person show in Japan, which
Yes.
was really that
in
really
Tokyo in the Ginza, right?
that was the most prestigious, but the Gammon House was the largest. Not the Gammon House, the Pacific Club. That was the biggest because it was great face because the museum lent me pieces back. But the one in Japan, that was really something in the 80s. That was in 1983. For a woman to be invited to do a one-person show in Japan was really quite
In
something.
the 80s in particular.
Yes, and Professor Mori was introduced to me by Lawrence Tam, who was the curator of the Hong Kong Museum of Art, who I was very lucky he liked my work. And when he offered me this one-person show, I sort of played it very cool, and I said, oh yes, I think it would be lovely, thank you very much. And he couldn't leave the house sort of fast enough, and I got on the phone to Walter. You won't believe what happened. It was great.
So that's amazing. So while you were doing that, I've heard from elsewhere, that Walter went on to be he was doing big things at the time as
Oh,
well,
yes.
wasn't he?
Yes.
He went to the Canton Fair.
Yeah, he was the only Guino to be invited to the Canton Fair for many, many years, which was really something.
And he worked on Hong Kong's trade.
He worked very hard. I mean, Hong Kong, we've been very privileged to have grown up here. And he worked very hard, furthering trade between Hong Kong and other places. And he was awarded the OBE for his work, actually.
That's really something. And he actually came to quite a high position in the Urban Council.
Oh yeah, he was the treasurer for many years. He was an urban councillor and was the treasurer. And he was on all sorts of committees. On 2047, but Rob is now the chairman. He was one of the founder members of that. And
He was pretty early in the anti-pollution campaign.
he was the chairman of the air pollution committee and warned the government years ago that if they didn't do something, we'd be in the trouble that we're in now.
Yes, yes.
They listened to him, they didn't do anything.
They didn't have enough money.
They said.
They said they didn't have enough money. He got one or two things. Actually, one of the cute things that we used to do at that time was the police weren't as busy with baddies as they are today, and they cooperated with us. And there were a team of us, of which I was lucky to be one of them, where we used to monitor belching diesel things, exhaust, and the police picked them up. And they were given 10 days in which to get their act together, otherwise they were fined. And no one was ever fined because they used to get their engines fixed.
Now, what's this about sweeping the street in Nathan Road, you and him?
Well, that was fun. He was also the chairman of the this Lapsap Chung,
Oh yeah.
oh God, do you remember that? And
Lapsap Chung was a publicity campaign.
yeah, this
on-
great big green monster, and
that the government dreamed up to persuade people to keep their houses and the streets clean.
yeah, and then they asked Walter, TVB, I can't remember, TVB or ATV, asked whether he would go over one Sunday and sweep the streets to incorporate it with a program. So Walter and I went over to Nathan Road to where the old dairy farm used to be there, and we got there, and the pavement was pristine clean. There wasn't a bit of dirt anywhere. So we went into the dairy farm and we said, could we have some of your rubbish, please? And we spread it all over the pavement. And they gave us two brooms, and I think Walter looked at us as to say, what end of a broom is which? And we swept it up and we went on TV.
Hong Kong was a small place in those days.
Oh, it was great. Great.
Now, Neil had his bar mitzvah in England,
Yep,
and because he was at boarding school,
correct.
right? But he came back, and when he came back here, he had bar mitzvah lessons here.
He was threatened with I don't know what if he didn't learn his portion off, because my father was a warden at a United Synagogue in London, and this was one thing that we had to do for my father. And Neil had a very nice voice. He was in the Glen Ely choir and everything. You were with him. And he was very good. He learned the whole thing off by heart. I can almost sing it myself now. No, I won't bother, don't worry.
No, I just wanted to make sure Howard had enough tape, that's all. And then...
That tells me to go.
No. And then... but you became active in the Jewish Women's Association in the 80s, didn't you?
Oh yes, we did a lot of things. But the main thing was when the JRC turned into the JCC, there was a period where we were at Melbourne Plaza.
So
and
this
during
is
that
when
time,
they were knocking down the building
Yeah.
here,
yeah,
and the work was being done to strengthen the shul at
Yes.
the same time.
Yes,
So
yes.
the club moved to Melbourne Plaza thanks
Yes.
to the generosity of the trustees and others. And you took, the JWA used to take advantage of Melbourne Plaza?
Oh yes, yes. It was, we actually, the big thing that we did at the beginning of the 90s, we organised a fashion show, and that really was a huge thing. Do you remember? People remember? We took the ballroom at the Grand Hyatt.
Who was on the committee, Ruth? Apart from you.
Well, Marcy Yacoel was, and I can't remember. We had a very good committee, but I sort of took it upon myself to do a lot of work for that.
But, and so you did a lot of the work.
Yes.
There were Marcy Yacoel, some others.
Yeah, there were others.
Anybody
Oh,
you
were you on
recognise
the
here?
committee? I don't remember. Well, then you remember the greatest fun I had with that was Gilbert Donnet was just getting the Marcel Rochat, the French couturier, and I said to Gilbert, come on, can we have it for the opening? We'll launch it. What was the name of the choreographer? I can't remember.
So you got a choreographer.
Oh, we got the choreographer in the Far East.
You got Rochat, Marcel Rochat to do a launch. You had who else?
We had Gotex doing children's things.
You had
as
Gotex
well.
doing children's things.
But
You did a project. Yeah, I was walking for
but
And
the thing,
Annika says that she was working on it.
walking for
She
Carl.
was one of my models.
Really?
Annika was one of your models, and
well, this I didn't have anything to do with that side. The thing that I had to do with was the decor of the Grand Hyatt, and that was one of the most fun things I've ever done, because I got hold of the flower shop at the Grand Hyatt and said, I need your cooperation, and if you're going to cooperate, I'm going to really go for it. The name of this was called Serendipity, which means, I've forgotten what it is, you've got it written down there.
it says here, and you wrote it, the
Yeah.
gift of making fortunate discoveries by accident.
Yeah, that was a cute name, we thought.
That's a nice name for a ball.
Yeah. Anyway, I ordered goblets, great big goblets, glass goblets from Mexico. I ordered little tiny styrofoam coloured balls from China to make the table pieces. I wanted it to be like an explosive happiness, or explosive sort of champagne bubbles. And I thought it was beautiful.
Did it work?
Oh, absolutely! It was magnificent.
How did the French take it?
They sent 12 people from Paris, and they were so gobsmacked at the standard that we had, because it was just beautiful. That they said that it was as good as any launching they had ever had in Paris. And
You must have been very proud.
yeah, I know. I've even got a scarf given to me by their main designer, who said that we only give this to very special people. So I've still got it.
And what about raising money? Was it a success?
We raised about 300,000.
Charlotte.
Yeah, we raised, I think, profit.
Yeah.
About 300,000.
Which is a marvellous thing, all for
Yeah.
the Jewish Women's Association.
Yeah,
Well done.
it was good. Yeah.
Who still have, it was a long time ago, in the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, was
It
a
was
lot
beginning
of
of the
money.
90s. Yeah,
Lots of money.
we raised a lot of money on that. Yeah, it was good fun.
Well done. So, just a couple of things then. You've never been ashamed of going out to play, Ruth, have you?
Not
To be
really.
fair.
Well,
The two most important things to play in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s? When you had some time, when the kids were in school and you weren't sitting on the lawn or going in and playing cards?
we used to do motor racing with.
Yeah.
I used to do. Walter was president of the Motor Sports Club, and I decided that he could do it. Why couldn't I? And used to do hill climbs and sprints and slaloms.
On the streets in Hong Kong?
Not on the streets, on the on sort of waterworks roads.
The water services roads?
On the service roads,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Fantastic.
And I was pretty good. I could never beat Walter, which annoyed the hell out of me. But I used to end up runner up to him,
And-
which was pretty good.
And on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday in the season?
Well, Saturday afternoon was racing. I've had horses since 1952, and all our horses were named after painters. There was Picasso, Giacometti, Modigliani, Tintoretto, Raphael. Some of them have been very, very good, and some of them have been not so good. But our last one, Chagall, had to retire just a few years ago because he played, poor love.
Oh,
But,
GG's, and
Lots of
they're very familiar with you at the Jockey Club.
Yeah, actually, I was really honoured because after Walter died, I was the first woman to be invited to be a voting member in her own right. So I am a, and so that was very nice. And Guy Watkins, who was the chairman, phoned me up one morning and said, Ruth. She said, we've got space at last. You'll be offered a voting membership. And that was very nice.
That's
So
lovely.
I've always had, I always used to say I was sort of the power behind the throne, getting things done at the Jockey Club for animals. For animals, I'm a bit of an animal freak, and I still enjoy it. We still go racing every week, as the Courtneys will know, and it's good fun.
That's it. So the only other thing I wanted to ask you was, you told me a great story, and I think everybody should know, about the boat.
Oh yeah.
Apart from the notices that you rather enjoyed, boats were called strange names in your house.
They were. Our first boat was a junk, and that was called the Yabba Dabba Doo. Well, that was when the kids were small, and the dinghy was called the Bubba Dabba Doo. The next one we had was the Grand Banks, and we called it the Machaya. And our Chinese friends used to always call it a Michia. And so Walter said, no. Well, what is a machaya? So Walter said, listen, I'll tell you what a machaya is. You're lying on the front of the boat, and you've got a blonde stroke in your stomach and a brunette stroke in your back. That's a machaya.
On that very Jewish note, ladies and gentlemen, Ruth Sulke.
Oh, they're lovely, thank you.
Now,
Now I've got to go home and put them in water.
would you like to take a couple of questions?
Yeah, if
If
anyone
anybody
wants
wants
to
to
ask
ask anything about how life was.
Yeah.
Two. What did
Judy?
Zung Fu do in Shanghai before the war? Not cut.
No. Zung Fu did business between China and the States and China and Europe in heavy machinery, in cotton waste, which was how Walter met Tim's parents, because Tim's father worked for Sapt Incorporated, and that was the connection there. That's how the Hoffmans and Walter.
Shall I take those off you
Thank you.
rather than you flash them on your mic?
Sorry.
Just help.
I'm not used to that. I don't usually need a mic. Everyone said I've got a loud voice. So they, that was the business, and that of course came to nothing when Mao Zedong came, and he was there for keeps. And that's they had the foresight. Zung Fu had the foresight to register the name Zung Fu in Hong Kong, and that's where we ended up.
So,
And the other thing I wanted to ask was, how about the poetry? We didn't mention Walter's poetry.
Oh yes, well he hasn't given me a chance.
and she did, if you were listening, she said he sent her a poem every
I know, but
day.
he wrote poetry.
He
too.
wrote
Yes,
poetry.
He used to
He
be
was
in
the
South China Morning Poet.
he won the award as the best poet, and he's had a book published as well, Myself and Words. He was a very good poet. He was a very exceptional man, actually. He was on the art side, on the business side, on the sports side. I was very lucky to have. It was a great tragedy that he died when he didn't have to die, because he just used to be married to the office and wouldn't slow down, and he had a heart condition, and that was very sad.
Very sad. Which year was that?
94.
Well, it's not stopped you powering onwards, that's for sure.
Well,
Every
what
time
are
I
you
see
gonna
you,
do?
you say,
You're
I've got 10 minutes now, I can do this, I'm going there and there and there and there.
What are you going to do, sit down and cry? I mean, I've cried inwardly, as we all do, but you've got to sort of forge ahead, and hasn't been,
And anybody else like to ask Ruth anything about 50s, 40s, 50s and 60s in Hong Kong? There's the gentleman behind you.
I guess I haven't heard much about how you engaged with China or the Chinese community. China hasn't really featured much in what you've spoken about. You want to talk about I mean, the Chinese part of Hong Kong or China itself?
Well, you have to divide this up really between Walter and me. Our lives were, Walter was very involved with everything China. That's why he was awarded the OBE, because his life was furthering Chinese interests in Hong Kong. Remember, it wasn't in Chinese interests in China, it was the Chinese interests in Hong Kong. And trade and culture. He also was involved in cultural things here. He was chairman of many committees doing to do with culture as well. And then I was very fortunate that my life was the art side, everything that I was soaking up. And we had our huge life together where everything used to intertwine. He was very supportive of my work, and I was always there supportive of all the things that he did. So we had a pretty good relationship.
And the Chinese painting, you studied Chinese
Yeah,
painting, you did,
Oh yes, I did a lot of that.
and Chinese drawing
Yes.
at the university
Yes.
with Chinese professors
Yes.
who taught you.
Yes. Yeah. But actually, the most fun I had was doing the modern China. I did that at the Art Centre, actually. A lot. No, it's a lot. It's everything all sort of sort of mixed up together, and it's been very good because all the things that I've done has sort of come, and it's been. If you want to look through my catalogue, there, you'll see it's a lot of mixture of stuff. Of the sculpting, the bas-relief especially the side of it, the sculptural forms and everything. So my work has been a sort of a mixture of all the things I've studied. And Walter was on the business side and the culture side, etc., with largely only involved with the Chinese.
Tim?
On a more serious note, could you talk about the Great Jello fight?
Oh no! He's being cheeky.
Yeah, but one Jello fight. You never told me about a Jello fight.
Oh, come on, Timothy Hoffman, you stinker. It was when Howard was staying with us in South Chuk Road, and
So we're back in the 50s now.
we're back in the 50s, yeah. And Tim Hoffman, when I get you outside, you start kidding. And Howard was a great joker, the same as this one's a joker as well. And Walter hated Jello, and Howard hated Jello, and I happened to like Jello. And we had a Cantonese cook boy at that time who was great and served us Jello. And so Walter started to go like this with his spoon, and Howard started to go like this with his spoon. And I said, listen, you two, if you don't stop it, there's going to be absolute hell to pay. And then Howard, his father, got hold of some Jello and flicked it at Walter, who proceeded to get some Jello and flick it back. And I was so incensed with anger, I stood up, all 5'0" of me, stamped my foot and said, this has got to stop. Stamped on some Jello and fell flat on my back. And Tim Hoffman, I'm going to kill you.
That's a great story. We won't ask what was in the Jello. Does anybody else have anything else to ask? No? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Join me. We will have a small presentation for Ruth a little bit later of another book. I haven't got it here. I seem to have left it outside, so you'll just join me in thanking Ruth Sulke, as usual, for being entertaining and informative. Watch your email for the next Fireside chat, which will be sometime early next year. Thanks, Ruth.
Pleasure. Hope I made you laugh.